everybody, a warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Janneke, and today I am super excited and thrilled to be here with Regan Hillyer, who is a self-made multi-millionaire, an extraordinary woman, such a powerhouse. And she's a serial entrepreneur, a success coach, a philanthropist, mindset coach, keynote speaker, and so much more. And today we're going to speak about how we can have it all according to Regan, and also intentional manifestation. Hello Regan, how are you doing today?
Hi, Janneke. I'm really well. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you, and I also want to say, for those who are members on Wisdom from North, we'll also go deeper into how we can manifest, because I watched many videos of you, Regan, lately, and I really feel that after I watched the video with you, I'm really inspired, like you helping me to raise my own frequency. And that is why I think it's so important to have teachers who have gone the path before, who has done the work, who can show the way. And it's really a good example that this is possible, even though a lot of us think probably inside, oh, how can I do it? Because you have been there. And I'd love to first just hear a bit about your story, because you started your own business as a 19-year-old. And at first, it didn't become a success like that, and you really delved into personal development and all. So there's a journey there. So I'd love to hear a bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I kind of started young in the journey. I was 18, 19, and I was actually studying to be an architect at the time because my dad had always told me, if I had your opportunities, Regan, I would have been an architect. And so I started living out my parents' dream, basically. And I was going down this path, and I was in a lecture theatre, and I had a lecturer actually take me through a visualization process. And he got us to visualize our lives as architects 20 years out from now. And obviously everyone was really inspired and excited, and I felt sick to my stomach with what I saw. I literally saw a life that I was creating that I knew I was not going to be madly in love with. And so I ran out of that lecture theatre. I went home and I made a decision that I was going to actually figure out, how do I create a life that I love? That's where I started. And I actually Googled, how do I quit my 9-to-5 job? I didn't even have one, but I was trying to get out of it because I knew it was coming. And so that led me to an ebook that then led me to, personal development events and seminars, and really going deep with that. And I was at a moment where I was over $100,000 in personal debt purely for coaching and education and courses and mentoring and all these different strategies, and nothing was really working in my life. I had all these little startup businesses which were failing, and my life wasn't changing. And I said to one of my mentors, I said, you know what, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I'm not meant to be successful. Maybe I should just, get a job and be an architect. And he said to me, he's like, Regan, you've got this whole thing totally backwards. He said, you're grasping outside of yourself for the answers, and you're so obsessed with all these strategies. He said, Regan, success is 80% the internal game. It's 80% mindset. It's 80% psychology. It's 80% aligning yourself to succeed from the inside out. And then only 20% what you do on the outside. And that just flipped everything for me. That threw me into a world of NLP and hypnosis and matrix energetics and energy healing and so many other things. And then from that place, when I went into that world, that's when I started actually seeing results in my life. And people were watching, and they started coming to me and started asking me, how are you doing this? And I started just organically sharing it with them and saying, well, start doing this and stop doing this, and here's a process for this. And then they started changing their lives. And then that was when I really felt a sense of purpose for the first time ever. And I thought, wow, you know what? Maybe there's something to this, actually helping other people create their dream realities.
Awesome, so inspiring. And I think this is connected to quantum physics. At
Mm-hmm.
least I feel that it's showing now in science, in quantum physics, that we have multiple opportunities. If we, and I think that even though that is the science of the smallest parts of life, I think that is reflected in the bigger parts of life. It's just we are so conditioned to think that it's not that way. And but I see that you're talking about frequencies, and that mindset is one thing, like positive thinking is one thing, but the frequencies and the emotions are actually the most important part.
Yes, absolutely. You know, say all the time, your frequency is your currency. You know, you can say I love you to someone, and you can say I love you with all my heart. You can also say I love you when you're really frustrated. You can also go, well, I love you, as if it's obvious. You know, it's the same words, but it's the vibration which then alters the frequency of the field, which lay underneath those words, which allow people to have a very different perception and a very different energetic experience around what you're actually putting out into the field. So I feel like if you're not aware of this, this is where people get a bit trapped in personal development, and they're like, oh, you know, I watched The Secret, I'm going to just do my affirmations and visualize everything and, you know, just be really positive every day. But if their frequency is not aligned to that, then they won't generally call in what they're looking to call in, because if you're not an energetic match for what you're looking to call in, then it's not going to show up in the physical. You have to vibrate at the same frequency as what you're looking to attract.
So how does that look like? Because it me, I get this picture in my head that I need to be like excited and happy all the time, but it doesn't feel natural to be like that, because I feel like one day I feel like that, another day I feel like that, and I can't really control it, or can I?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, I really believe it's not about just being excited or happy all the time. Sometimes the frequency to be in is a frequency which is very grounded and very deep. You know, when you meet someone and you're like, how are you? And they're like, amazing, amazing, I'm really amazing. And you're like, you don't feel amazing. You feel anxious and stressed out, yet they're telling you they're excited and they're amazing. So it's kind of like that. It's actually getting into the deep state. And what I love to do with this is let's say there's a goal you're looking to manifest, maybe a certain amount of money, for example. What I love doing is setting an alarm on my phone, ideally every hour or every 2 hours throughout the day, you know, when you can. You set a nice, you know, nice sounding alarm, and it goes off. And when that alarm goes off, you stop for anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And that is your moment to close your eyes and just get into the feeling of whatever you're looking to call in, this money goal, have it be already done. So you literally sit there, you close your eyes, and you're like, I'm so happy and grateful I just received this. This feels so good to know that this money goal has just manifested. I can see it in my bank account. I can, you know, utilize it in this way. It feels so good. And it might not feel hyped up, excited. It might just feel like really calm, deep gratitude. And so it's getting into the authentic vibration, not just a vibration of, oh my God, I have to be happy all the time.
So what about when the mind comes in and says, I don't believe this, you know, I know I'm trying now, but it's never going to work, this is too good to be true, that that you actually don't believe in it. Do you need to believe in it?
Yes, you do need to believe in it. And if your internal belief system isn't in alignment with what you're calling in, then it won't manifest, right? So if you're being happy and positive, if you're doing the alarm thing, you know, if you're doing all these things on the outside, but deep down you have a belief system that thinks you're not deserving and worthy of it, or that it's not possible, or it can't happen in that amount of time, or, you know, it's impossible, right? If you have those things going on, then that's what you will be emitting, because our beliefs are thoughts, and our thoughts hold a frequency. So when our thoughts are going out, they're emitting that frequency, they're kind of countering all the other work that you're doing, you know, when you set the alarm and you drop into that. And so I really encourage people to firstly be aware of what they're thinking, because many of our beliefs are unconscious. They sit underneath the surface. And that's a tricky place for them to be, because then they're altering our frequency without us realizing. So often when there's a goal or, you know, something you're looking to manifest, I encourage people just to sit down and ask themselves, what do I really believe about this? And do this from a really raw and real space. And you can believe, like, you know what, like I'm not sure I believe it's possible, or like it feels like it's a lot, or I believe that if I have this, people are going to judge me, or I believe I might lose my friends, and whatever it is, write it down. You probably also have some positive beliefs in there too. And then this is where you get to look at it, and you look at it in your journal or on that piece of paper, and then from this place you realize that, okay, now I'm aware of those things, because awareness is 90% of the game. Right? If you're aware of it, you can catch it and you can shift it. If you're unaware and it's unconscious, it's very challenging to shift, you know, your belief structure. So from that place of awareness, you can go, okay, well, I want to change that. I don't really want to believe that. You can change your thoughts and your beliefs in an instant. So this is where I turn the page, and you can even rip that page out if you want. You're done with that. And you can get a new page and ask yourself, well, what would I love to believe? And what would I choose to believe if this was already done? If it had already happened, you'd probably believe it's possible. You'd probably believe you're deserving and worthy of it. You'd probably believe that it was fun and easy and an amazing thing. And you start writing out, I choose to believe, I choose to believe, I choose to believe. When you get to the end of that, it's not uncommon to then look at that and go, well, you know what? It would be great to believe all that, but bullshit. I don't believe it still, right? And this is where you get to be gentle with yourself. Not everything necessarily shifts in, one journaling session or sitting down for one piece of meditation. Sometimes it takes work, it takes daily nurturing. And every single day, if you're writing out, I choose to believe this is possible, I choose to believe this is done, you'll get to a point where you won't even need to write it anymore because it's just part of who you are. You're not sitting there right now journaling going, I choose to believe the sky is blue. I choose to believe the sky is blue. You're just like, the sky's blue. And you'll get to a point where you're like, of course I'm worthy. Of course that's possible. And then when it's in that place with your vibrational frequency, that's generally when you see it show up in the physical. But it takes that inner alignment.
So do you think some belief systems are harder than others to shift sometimes? If it can be trauma that you have from your childhood, for instance, that's really stuck. And they might come up, but it's still like a trauma in the body, and perhaps we need like a therapist to really get the root up.
Right. So this is interesting. This is where we start looking at the belief system under the belief system. Okay. So if you have trauma and you go, well, that's going to be really hard for me to manifest because I was abused or whatever story from the past is running, right? This is where you start looking at your beliefs around change, right? So if you're telling yourself it's really hard to change, trauma takes longer to shift, right? This is harder for me because I have this happen in my past, then yes, it will take longer. However, if you choose to believe that, okay, regardless of what went on in the past, time's an illusion, I can shift anything in any moment, anything is possible to shift, it all gets to shift right now, it shifts before I even require it to shift. If you start creating beliefs around change and the work you're doing like that, then powerful things happen. Every time I get a journal, I open the front page and I write something like, I decree and declare that magic happens every time I open this journal. I decree and declare that every time I write my intentions in this journal, it manifests instantly. Like I set it up so that every time I go to do the work, it's supported by a changed belief system in the most powerful way. So yes, if you're unaware and you have all of these things stuck under the surface, but if you're doing the work at that next layer down, then no, it can shift really, really, really fast.
Wow. It seems that in one way, everything is happening in the moment, I believe. So actually, no matter what have happened, we can always shift it in the moment. Yeah. And so what about, is it important to raise or vibrate on a higher frequency every day? Because it's so easy to fall down and be a bit disappointed in yourself. You've been doing all this work and all of a sudden you feel sad, you feel grief, you feel a bit depressed, and then you feel like, oh, I'm sabotaging right now. So maybe you believe in it, but you don't feel, you have a low vibrating emotions. And sometimes I feel like when we start the spiritual journey or the personal development journey, things come up, like feelings that we have suppressed come up, especially when we start to meditate. So I guess my question is not to be afraid when that shows up, because, now I'm sabotaging my manifestation. But in another way, it's good that I'm getting up these emotions so I can release them.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's the beautiful fine line that we get to walk around being open and available to feel all emotions, right? And to give yourself permission to go into that, but at the same time to not get lost in it. You know, I really believe that emotions are your soul speaking to you, and emotions are only coming up when there's lessons encoded within them. And we can get lost in the emotional body and just get lost for days, even in the sadness or the anger or the whatever's going on, right? And we can just be in that state. And yes, that's when your vibration lowers, then you disconnect from what you're manifesting. But if we instead use our emotions as fuel, emotions are energy in motion. And if we use them and we take those lessons and we use them to drive them forward into the manifestations by unlocking the lessons, then all of a sudden, something really powerful starts to happen all of a sudden. And I remember a time in my personal development journey where it was almost like I got told by a few people that anything that was like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, anything in that spectrum was bad. And I created a story that, well, if I'm feeling that, then I'm not high vibe. If I'm feeling that, then, I'm failing. I'm sabotaging, like you said, right? And so what I did is I started just numbing them. I was like, okay, I'm unavailable to feel anger. I'm unavailable to feel sadness. And then something would happen and people would be like, whoa, are you angry about that? And I had a right to be humanly angry. And I'd be like, no. And I'd be in this false bliss, numbed state, right? And it served me for probably about 6 months. And then I realized that because I was numbing all of those emotions over that side, I was also numbing the pleasure, I was numbing the love, I was numbing the bliss, I was numbing the joy, I was numbing the gratitude, all of the emotions required to manifest. And so I actually had to go down a path of retraining myself to feel all of my emotions because I'd buried them so far away that I couldn't even access them anymore. So I practiced literally sitting in a room, making myself feel angry and hitting a pillow. I practiced sitting there and connecting with things until I felt sad so I could actually access the feeling of sadness and process it through my system. Now, again, not getting lost in it and being like sad for a week, but instead now I can sit there and go, oh, that happened. I feel sad about that. Okay, why am I feeling sad? What's the lesson here? How do I shift this emotion? How do I use this as fuel? And now I have a full access spectrum of emotions rather than only accessing half of them and all of them being numbed across the board.
Wow. I'm so glad you share that because that's a question I've had many times, and it's so important that difference so we really understand this deeper, because it's not, like you said, like the secrets, that is just to do that, and then there are deeper aspects to it.
Yes, totally.
So before we move on to, we're going to do a video for my membership, but is there one thing you can leave the viewers here on YouTube with today that they can start doing, like a first step to really open up to more abundance?
Yeah, totally. So I love journaling, and I think it's such a simple and easy tool for people to tap into. And I love going through a process where firstly you start journaling about your vision. So just ask yourself, if I was to unapologetically ask for what I want, what would be going on in my life? What is my big picture vision? And start just writing. There's no wrong way to journal. People are like, I don't know how to journal. You pick up your pen and you start writing, right? And so you journal about this, but write it out in the present. Write it out as if it's done. So this would look like, I'm so happy and grateful that this happened. I'm so happy and grateful that this is now showing up in my reality. So you get that done, and then you tune into that. And the second part to this is then asking yourself, okay, what's currently blocking that or stopping that? Because if you have a dream or a vision and you're calling it into your reality, and if it's not here right now in the physical, then there's internal blocks and limitations holding back that manifestation. So this is where you get really clear on the fears and the limits and the self-doubt and the negative self-talk and the emotions and everything. And you get clear on that and you pull it to your awareness, like we talked about before, so that if and when it does come up in the future, you can catch it and you can recode it and you can shift it and you can do the work to alchemize that. And then the last piece around this, which is important, is actually an action piece. You know, it's not enough just to do all the internal work and then just like sit there in your room and be like, oh, everything's just going to come to me now. Like, you do have to show up. You know, you've got to go do the thing. You've got to build the business. You've got to make the calls, like whatever it is that you're doing. And instead of asking yourself, you know, how do I make this manifestation happen? I love asking, what do I get to do to speed up the manifestation process? Because this is really a co-creation between you and God and source, or whatever tag you want to put on that energy, greater than you and you at the same time. And from this place, you start writing out like, okay, I'm going to call that person. I'm going to say yes to that thing. Like, I'm going to get that blog up. I'm going to do that live stream. I'm going to film that thing, whatever it is. And you start writing those out and actually committing to that. So that way your action that you're taking in your life and your business is in alignment with your vision, basically, and what you're actually calling it.
Beautiful. You're such an inspiration. And I know you have a membership going on also that I'm going to check out. So guys, check out Regan's website, and her work is really inspirational. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. It's been great.
And remember to subscribe to both our channels if you haven't before. Much light from Norway and Costa Rica. Bye.